stairs in your house?
Yes. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. So I'm on the bottom floor. It's
And where's your router at? Bottom or upper floor?
bottom.
So
It's go ahead.
what, 10 feet away from you?
No,
How
it's
far away is your
just probably 20, 30 feet if I had to take a guess at it.
You could go, I mean, you just go get an Ethernet cable
Okay.
and for whatever length you need to.
Mhm.
And then you just there should be a spot to plug that in on your router, and
Right.
then just plug it. Then you plug it in the back of your computer, and that should
But
significantly increase your download and upload.
yeah, I'm gonna get one tomorrow and get that done. Uh, because
When I ran
well,
my speed test, the difference for literally between Ethernet and Wi-Fi, I've been running like I think like 30 megabytes a second
mm-hmm.
on Wi-Fi, and it went up to 704 megabytes per second.
Wow. It's like when you're talking, you're talking so fast.
Do I talk fast?
No,
No.
it might just because your internet speed.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, when you said that earlier, I was like, I don't know what that means, but it sounds like it's really fast, man.
yeah. I didn't know it fast until I had looked it up.
Right. Cool beans. Yeah, I'm gonna go get one tomorrow, man. And see what if that'll make a difference.
Right on.
Yeah, it will.
And then we're gonna finish this book with the next 3 chapters this week.
Yeah, so we can. So I went first, so we can do that right now. So let's see. So let's see. So who went after
And
me?
I'm glad I got the
I
Carthage
did.
chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah, Carthage was good. Well,
I enjoyed the
Ask 'em.
Carthage chapter.
Ask 'em is good too. You can do Ask 'em,
Okay.
and then uh Chris, you do Ghana, and then I'll do the Mali.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Zoom.
yeah. Ask 'em is good too, man. It's good too.
It's just a cool name.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
Yeah.
It
So if I
is.
change my name in a couple of weeks, y'all know why now. I know why.
What did you like about Carthage, Chris? What did you like about Carthage?
Well, the only information I ever knew about Carthage was from the Gladiator movie
hmm
with and I mean, freaking awesome movie. And that movie kind of depicts Carthage as a like an armpit area, like
Right.
just kind of a piece of crap. And so I didn't really knew anything about Carthage. I didn't know there was this another basically society that could challenge Rome. And so I just thought it was very interesting. There was another society that could challenge Rome. And yeah, I didn't know they were as powerful as they were.
Yeah, it's just.
Rue had. Go ahead, brother. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say the suppression of this information is just wild. It's just wild. I mean, like I said, every American should just be devastated, or anybody should be devastated because you're missing out on so much world history.
And I think this would be a cool movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it would.
And make the movie kind of depict where you see how they could have defeated Rome if it wasn't for the freaking oligarchs.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's everything that you say, it's like, for me too, it's like when I read about how elegant and beautiful these places were, especially, we read about Cordova and, trying to put that in, it's hard to even try to picture in your mind what these places were like, because there's no place on earth that is even remotely close to any of these ancient kingdoms and in that regard, let alone you talk about the wealth and everyone, the way they, the fine linen and the dress. And, one of the things I do like is when I watch, movies of that era is when all the candles that are lit throughout everything, I think that is just beautiful, man. I dig that. But, you're right. I mean, like, you're missing out. You're missing. I know reading's not for a lot of folks. However, do better, man. It's just crazy. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it's necessary, and then it's almost as if we're it's we're still dealing with the same thing like right now. There's a theory about the heartland. You know what I mean? And when I had read about in our previous book, did the Nile Valley basically control what they call the theory of the heartland right now? And it stated yes. So basically, what we're fighting for right now through this the strat of Hamas or whatever it's called,
The Strait of Hormuz.
Hamas,
Hormuz.
Hamas,
Strait of Hormuz.
Harmuz,
Yeah.
Hormuz, But
I've been down that strait a couple times.
Have you really? I know you have. Yeah, I know you have. Man. But anyway, it's just we're still fighting the same thing. We're still fighting to the same thing of the trade power, the trade routes. And if you don't even understand this you're not gonna really understand this from a modern standpoint if you really don't understand it from an ancient standpoint. You know what I mean? And how significant this plays a role in our everyday society. Right now we're dealing with quite a bit, you know what I mean, due to the negativity of this particular war and how much is putting so many American citizens on the edge.
Yeah.
On edge.
And I think
financially.
What makes this time, like you said, history's repeating, but in my opinion, what's making our time frame the worst time frame in history, is the fact that, the way it's happening, it didn't happen like it did before. Today, there's a lot of abundance everywhere. And so, especially in the United States, even our poorest people, like they're taken care of. Like we have running water, we have good infrastructure. We don't have a problem with disease and things being clean. But so we live in abundance. We have food, but we are taxed like no other.
Right.
Like Rome didn't even tax their citizens the way we are taxed. Right. And this is how we are slaves. This is modern slavery. This is the taxation. And then we the citizens don't have any power because we don't have any wealth, but we have plenty of things to keep us comfortable.
Right.
And so now that they have it, they're way ahead of us, the leaders in today's world compared to back then.
I do.
Because back then they didn't have comfort.
Right. Yep. Privileges. Yep.
Yes.
You're right.
So let me ask you this, the masses do have the numbers. So do we have to have the money to have the power?
No, I don't believe so.
I mean, technically we can take the money back.
That's right.
We sure can.
I mean, it's ours. Right. We're the one producing it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that requires unification. That's really hard when people are comfortable.
I was just getting ready to say, you said a key point, and the word is comfortable. And that's a big deal. That's a really big deal. It's the comfortableness of life. And so who wants to give that up to fight for something better?
It just depends how you look at it. I mean, I'm with Chris. There are a lot of people who are comfortable, then a lot of us who are not.
That's right.
You know what I mean? I mean, you start doing some studying into our everyday society like we talked about before, our food, our water. We have running water, but what's in our running water? We have food. You know what I mean? I bought my kids some organic, what I thought were organic, little bars. And, and we started doing a little deeper research, and you pay 2 times the amount for the bars. And yet again, it's the same sugar content. You know what I mean? I even read about cavities, how more kids these days have cavities. I never had a cavity, as a child nor adult. But my daughter's dance class, there's 3 or 4 kids, 4 or 5, 6 years old, who have cavities. And I'm not talking about just 1 or 2, 3 or 4 cavities in their molars. And and again, it's like everything is almost in this society or in United States society is damn near killing us. You know what I mean? My wife and I, we just had a discussion today, and she read something about Canada, and she started to compare Canada to the United States. And it's unreal. It's unreal. Yes, I know Canada's a little higher in taxes, but it's free healthcare.
Yeah, their healthcare is crap, man.
Yeah. I hadn't looked all into it, but we have no free healthcare.
So whenever it comes to free healthcare and where the government's paying for it, what happens is, so now everyone has free healthcare, but your kid gets the flu. Well, everyone has the flu. They're backlogged. The doctors are not getting paid a good amount of good wage.
Right.
So they're not working very hard, and no one has incentive to do anything. And so their healthcare system is very backed up, and they have a lot of problems
Right.
with their healthcare system.
Yeah.
So like when it comes down to the government taking care of the healthcare system, that's the wrong way of thinking about it. Is we need to get rid of healthcare system. We need to stop having healthcare the way it's operated. Healthcare doesn't matter what country you're in, but especially in Canada and the U.S., it's all controlled around symptoms that are metabolic,
right,
because of our food.
Right.
And they want us to keep eating this and stay at these, and they don't want to fix your problem, your root problem. They want to fix your symptom, because if they control your symptoms, you're now a customer for life.
That's right.
Right.
They don't want to change that system. And really all we have we just have to get healthy. And then there's not a burden on the healthcare market. And then we can have a private healthcare market where people can actually compete without insurance, and that the price would go way down because there wasn't be a bunch of sick people. It'd
Right.
be more of a rare thing versus a $1 billion industry from a disease that's 100% curable, like type 2 diabetes.
Right.
Anyone that has type 2 diabetes, all they have is excuses instead of the cure.
Right.
And we have the cure, but they don't want to give them the cure. They want to give them insulin and all these drugs to deal with the problem.
Yeah.
The thing is, if type 2 diabetes went away, that's $1 billion industry that would go away. You think they want to shut that money train down?
Right. That's facts. It's just like high
So
blood
then-
pressure medication.
So then, to everything you just said, then how, as the masses, how can they combat that? If money is an issue and you don't have
Informing
the money to do
themselves.
better. That's one way. That's absolutely. So let me ask you this too as well. So you mentioned about Canada. Do you think that the other countries that have free health care, you think they're all the same?
No, I saying like Switzerland, I believe they have a healthcare system, but the population of that country is much smaller.
True.
So they can some countries can get away with it. Doesn't mean it's what's optimal. I think what's optimal is, in today's world, there's so much information out there, but yet people are distracted because of their pleasures and the entertainment that's so easily attained today. And like I said, people are comfortable, so people are not going to go out of the way to learn the information, and people are accustomed to doing things that are easy and not the hard path. Exercising, eating the right kinds of foods, and changing your habits are not easy.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't think that's possible. I don't think that's possible. I don't think our food, we don't control our food industry. You know what I mean? I don't think it's possible we could eat any healthier. I don't. I mean, I spend a lot of money on groceries and eat outside of the concept of what the narrative is.
But what's the healthier family compared to other Americans and Canadian? What's the right now your current healthier family compared to other Americans and Canadians?
The current health of my family?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like my family's getting health. I mean, to be honest with you, man, we fast a whole lot. Do you know what I mean?
But my point is that you're healthy because you're doing those things.
I believe I'm healthy, and I believe that's a big thing too, through manifestation, through the mind. Placebo. When you look into, the medical field, you're competing with some synthetic drug and placebo, which is just a thought. You know what I mean? The manifestation of thought. So, I mean, I believe through that process that keeps me healthy. You know what I mean? But when I look into the particular items, to feed my children, and because they're going to look to eat. I don't see healthy. I just don't. I don't see healthy. I mean, even when you think about seeds and stuff, our seeds have been governized. You know what I mean? Where you have certain corporations who spread these particular seeds, and they're not. I mean, even think about watermelon. I can't even buy watermelon with seeds in it. I mean, we live in a small area. I live near Chris. And so we went to a certain lady we would buy our watermelons from every single year, and she says I can no longer get seeded watermelon. You can't get seeded grapes, but even if you do find seeded grapes, they're like $15. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they're more
so-
expensive.
Yeah, so it's just like so I think it's going to be difficult. I think it's going to be difficult. And as a matter of fact, I know CDC about 10 to 15 years ago stated that our kids will not outlive their parents. You know what I mean? So my kids, um, their kids might not outlive them. They might die a lot sooner than just because the health care and the healthy foods and food in general is just no longer healthy. You know, it's no longer healthy. You know, I mean, my wife and I even looked into breatharianism, where we just simply breathe and go out in the sun and collect vitamin D and support ourselves. You know what I'm saying? But how likely is that? You know what I mean? So, or how possible is that? You know, I've read, certain documents on that as well. But I mean, I got a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And at this time, they're used to eating food. So I do get them to fast. You and I talked about this. You know, my kids probably eat about once, maybe twice a day. To some people that might be starvation, but at the same time, I see the benefit of my kids' health when it comes to that.
To everything that you gentlemen are talking about. So the healthcare is a vicious cycle to go round and round to keep us in that loop to test and proc and prod and to get the money to keep that going. And so as far as the food, there is the theory that that the Western civilization, or maybe just USA, we are still living in the industrialized civilization, which is the way our food is still made and processed. Now, what do you think we are still in that way as far as talking about the how the food is to everything you mentioned about organic? It's just a word that's on the box, but
Hmm.
it's still just the same versus other countries who are progressed past the industrialized civilization part of it and have moved on, and yet the United States is still in that category.
Whenever there is money to be made
Hmm.
off someone else's health, there's
Yeah,
always going to be a problem.
that is
Sure.
facts, though. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean, doctors, in my opinion, shouldn't be as held in high regard as they are today in our society.
Right,
And I know that's a lot of people are going to disagree with me.
right,
I'm allowed to have my own opinion.
That's
right.
right.
But I mean, I think they're still super important, 100%. I think they're very valued in society. But the way they're viewed in today's world as basically God's law and what they say,
Hmm.
I think it's very wrong
Right.
to put that much faith in our doctors, especially when um, everything is ran by greed
Yeah,
with the healthcare system.
yeah. They get paid to keep you sick, like you said earlier. That's just
And there's
untrustworthy.
there's other countries that have better uh, they have better care and better procedures and um, that the United States doesn't allow doctors to practice within the states because it
Mm.
actually helps people.
Mm. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I was a big fan of Dr. Sebi. I don't know if you heard of Dr. Sebi. In 1980s, I believe he was curing all type of cancers, and they end up indicting him and claiming that he was practicing without and he wasn't. Come to find out, he ended up winning the case, but they end up, as some people would say, killing him about 5, 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago now. Matter of fact, there's a lot of holistic doctors who started to die around the time Dr. Sebi did, and it just kind of makes you wonder.
I
Kind
think
of
the
makes you
biggest
wonder.
thing, man, is I think really the biggest thing in our society when it comes to health is not even necessarily the food and the ingredients and the processed foods. Um, I think it's really the inactivity, the this the way our society lives everyday life. They exercise is pretty common. A lot of people exercise,
Hmm.
but that's the only movement they get for the day.
Right. Right.
Oh, they worked out for 30 minutes. Okay, but for they sat down for 16 hours.
Right. True.
You know,
Right.
and like I know guys, dude, they're 85 years old. They
Hmm.
have a six pack.
Hmm.
They smoke cigarettes. He drinks Mountain Dew.
Right.
Dips at the same time. Eats McDonald's and Burger King every day. And man, he has no problems.
Right.
And there's
Hmm.
a lot of people like that.
Right.
Um, and also depression. I think being depressed, having low frequency and low output and non-achieving
Right.
lifestyle,
Right.
I think that also brings disease.
Right. I do
Um,
agree.
and then living your life in negativity.
Right.
Um, I
Yeah.
think there is something to that on the
I do
spiritual
agree.
side.
I do
Your
agree.
body becomes susceptible to this, to certain things.
Yes. Yeah, it's so funny you say that. My wife and I are watching this series, and this guy, multi-billionaire, I would say. He goes to Italy for some holistic healing, and he has cancer. I don't know what particular cancer he has, and so the doctor comes in 6 weeks later and say, "Hey, basically, we don't see any signs of cancer. So I just want you to rest for now. You can go back to the States here in a couple of days." Well, he gets a phone call, and it starts to spike, increase his blood pressure. Doctor comes back in and says, "If you want to live and not bring this cancer back, I would advise you to not stress your body." You know what I mean? And I thought that was a valid point. I'm with you on this, just adding on to what you had already mentioned. Living a happy, healthy life, or a happy life, it does increase your health. And I'm with you too, when you talked about, but it's like this,
I'm pause real quick on when you said stress. I actually disagree that stress is what causes disease. Because realistically, without stress, you wouldn't have a reason to increase testosterone.
I get what you're saying. Right. I guess what I'm saying is, I think your stress you're mentioning is within the body itself. It's like force lifting weights, like a deadlift might seem stressful, but the benefit that comes with a deadlift or doing squats. But if you're constantly worried about money and constantly worried about childcare and what meal you're gonna eat, I think that poses a negativity onto the body. Where you are more prone to, or your immune system is more prone to being sick. Even when you talked about, like with my kids, they go outside 3 or 4 times a day for at least 45 minutes per time they're outside. And so when I look, I don't see my kids sick. When my daughter goes to dance class and 6 kids are six in her class, they're coughing, my daughter doesn't come home coughing. You know what I mean? So, and by keeping them happy and keeping them outside, I'm with you on that. As far as the gentleman you mentioned who was 85 years old, but in addition to that, my grandmother is 95 years old, right? And she all things she has is arthritis. That's it. She's been trying to die for 40 years now. She's been making she has. She's like, when I go, you guys do this and this. But I feel like there was a different time. You know what I mean? That, like, when I think I would say my grandmother has 50, 60 years of good, potent food. You know what I mean? Where it was, a harvest by the right people. Corporations didn't run it like they do now. So I think the process of how the corporations are currently running the food industry is what's bringing the sickness on, versus somebody who was 95 or 100 years old to this day, when they was actually eating from their next door neighbor and farmers and good people, versus the corporations we deal with now. So I think the generational time period makes a big difference into the longevity, or a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah. And also, like, when you think about, you know what the disease is going around with the deer, the
Yes.
chronic wasting disease,
hmm
right? CWD. So, do you know the reason why that started?
No, I don't.
I mean, so the real reason why CWD has been spread through our deer population is because there's too many deer.
Mhm.
And in nature, whenever things are out of balance,
Right,
nature fixes that,
right,
right?
yes, sir.
And so our modern Western society, where we live in an abundance of calories, and calories are never restricted, people don't practice fasting. It's
Right.
non-existent
Oh
anymore.
yes. Oh
And
yes.
I mean, there's a lot of evidence to show that fasting is your PM for the body for cancer.
Right,
And it
right,
used to be practiced by default a long time ago because food was more scarce than it is today.
right,
But we don't have that problem today. We have the opposite problem.
right,
And it's kind of crazy. There's still parts of the world that are going hungry.
right,
When we actually have, there's studies been done that show that we have enough food to feed the whole world 3 times over.
I do. Yep. I've
But there's so much waste.
hmm
And there's a lot of abundance in the Western societies, and that's where the cancer is most prevalent.
Right.
And it's because people don't take a step back, and it's actually, this actually doesn't surprise me that this is where we're at, because when you look at nature always takes the easiest path.
Right.
No matter what. Okay. And nature's always going to do its thing. And, you know, if you like to be comfort, you know, then you have no reason for your body to stay strong.
Right.
Okay. See, it makes a weak body. And that's where we're at today is we almost have to force discomfort so we can't keep ourselves healthy.
Right. Right. Yep. I'm with you on that.
And we're taught the opposite. Oh, it's cold. Ooh,
Right.
It's too hot. I need the AC on.
Yes.
Instead of embracing a little bit of discomfort.
Right. Right. You know, that's one thing that my wife and I, that's why we lived off the grid for 4 or 5 years. We just, we put ourselves in that discomfort and to use the bare minimum to survive. And man, it benefited us, man, soulfully. Like there's no going back. You know what I mean? There's no going back in the multiple reasons. You know, even with my wife itself, just when you have to literally work together as a team throughout the whole entire day, man, that's my soulmate right there. You know what I mean? But then again, too, when you're in the middle of the woods and you can just step away and go faster 2 or 3 days and just meditate and get into your own self and build yourself, man, it's so beneficial. You know what I mean? Getting away from the cell phone, you know, to get away from the loud noise. I mean, moving from Dallas, Texas to the middle of nowhere did me good beyond what good is necessary to be of, you know, for sure. But I agree with you, bro. I agree with you on a lot of everything you're saying, Chris. Real shit. Real stuff. My fault. My fault, Robert. You have to blink that one out.
I was cutting in and out of that, kid, so I missed a lot of the conversation.
Yeah.
All right, man. You got anything else we want to talk about, Robert?
Oh man, that was it was good, brothers. It was good. I'm not glad. Sorry I couldn't be there for the last 15 minutes or so. I was in and out of this thing. But I know you gentlemen carried on strong as we always do. But we got the chapters for next week and Open Mic Tuesday. Everybody good for that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Cool beans, man. I love y'all, Kings, very much.
Love you too, man.
Peace.
Rock and roll.